Well, here we are with your weekly update on the EV tax credits, specifically related to Build Back Better, which is the larger bill at hand that does include those EV tax credits. So last week we talked about the importance of this week, and a telling sign of progress that would or would not be made would be determined on if the Senate was in session. Well, as it turns out, the Senate was indeed in session this week, and they've been working feverishly to try to wrap up all the objections for Build Back Better. Joe Manchin has been in direct contact with Joe Biden, and they've been negotiating in earnest on this bill and what Joe Manchin wants to see to get this across the finish line. So there's some good news there. There's also some bad news. We're getting reports now that negotiations are sort of stalling out between Manchin and Joe Biden. The biggest issue at the moment is it sounds like Joe Manchin will not clearly tell Joe Biden exactly what he wants to see in the bill to give it his blessing. It's more of a, it can't exceed this price and it has to be legal. So that's really where he's standing. A lot of the objections come at the cost of this bill. As you know, at this point, it's been reported that Build Back Better would cost $1.75 trillion. However, that number does include a number of programs that are going to end early. So when Joe Manchin told the party that this bill cannot exceed $1.75 trillion, there were a couple of ways that Democrats could have gone about and done that. Number one, they could have scaled back a number of programs and eliminated them altogether. It would have brought the bill to a much smaller package, and the number of programs that they would be implementing would certainly be reduced. And the other option, which is the option that the Democrats went with, was to keep the same programs in there, but to just reduce the time that they're in effect. Joe Manchin this week very specifically was targeted on this because the child tax credits is one of the biggest pieces of this that reporters seem to be zeroing in on. And Joe Manchin did kind of light off a fuse on reporters this week when they were pressing him about the child tax credits. The child tax credits are now over. December 15th was the last payment that Americans got in that form of a child tax credit paid monthly. So starting now, there's no more tax credits coming for children. Now, this is not a political channel, so I'm trying to skirt the line here to give you the updates, but I do want you to know why this is such a touchy issue. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities did report that those tax credits had lifted half of children out of poverty. So something like 9.9 million children were lifted out of poverty with those tax credits. Now that those are going away, those 9.9 million children are presumably going back into poverty. And this was probably one of the biggest polarizing issues and why Joe Manchin got so testy on this. The reason why this is such a big deal is because those tax credits are now expired. And in Build Back Better, those tax credits are included. Those tax credits would be extended through 2022. But as Joe Manchin has continued to point out, like a number of other programs, they have different end dates, and he wants to see what would happen if this bill was 10 years for all the programs that are in there. After all, once a benefit's been added, it's very hard to take it away, even when it does have a sunset date. His argument is that it's likely that a program like this is going to be extended anyways, so how much would it cost if it was the full 10 years? So that's obviously what Manchin is saying when he says that there's games being played with the numbers. So whether or not that's a fair assessment or not is not the point. The point is Joe Manchin is not satisfied with how they've come down to a $1.75 trillion figure for the spending bill. As it sits right now, Build Back Better would be basically a $158 billion deficit adder. And when you look at all these programs, if you extend them to 10 years so that everything ends at the same time, it would actually add $2.75 trillion to the deficit. So it's not just a $1.75 trillion bill, it's actually more like a $5 trillion bill if all the programs lasted for the full 10 years. Now obviously that's been quite a bit of an issue for making progress for getting this to pass. However, the Senate has been hard at work, and this week specifically they have been pleading their case in front of the parliamentarian to try to say that each of these individual items are indeed legal. So the parliamentarian has yet to make a ruling on what is and is not legal in this bill, so they don't even have technically a final version. Even if they wanted to go forward and go for a vote right now as it's written, they still don't have the blessing from the parliamentarian that everything in there can be implemented via the budget reconciliation process. Now, the parliamentarian is a nonpartisan member of Congress, and the sole role is to review bills as they come through and ensure that there's nothing in there that is or is not legal. So she has been making her determination on bills for a number of years, and she has voted with and against both Democrats and Republicans. It is purely a nonpartisan role and really ensuring that we're maintaining the rules of Congress and not trying to push things through that violate those rules. Of course, the other issues at hand is the SALT tax credit, which was increased from $10,000 to $80,000, paid family leave, which is 4 weeks, the union boost for the EV tax credits, undocumented workers receiving renewable work authorizations, methane fee on emissions for energy producers, and of course Medicare to include hearing as well. Last week, Chuck Schumer was very optimistic on their ability to get this on the floor for a vote before Christmas. This week, the reporting is quite the opposite. As a matter of fact, the outlook is that 2022 is likely when we're going to finally get some progress. So it's very unlikely that a bill is going to be brought to the floor for a vote. So even if it was, it then has to go to the House to be approved, and then it would go to the president. So there's still so much work to be done here in such little time, and both the Senate and the House are usually on recess right now through the rest of the year. They will obviously stay in session should they be able to make progress, but at this time, it's not looking good. But there is some good news here when it relates to EV tax credits. Assuming nothing major changes in the fundamental breakdown of how these EV tax credits are working, even if they do pass this bill later in 2022, the effective date of these tax credits is for vehicles that are put into service after December 31st, 2021. So starting January 1st, 2022, you would then qualify. So even if it does pass in February, it would be at that point a retroactive bill. It would only be retroactive though till January 1st of 2022. So don't lose complete hope yet. And although this is not a final bill and so many things could change, there's still a risk this may not even pass altogether. There is still, as it sits right now, the ability to get these tax credits as long as you take delivery of your car January 1st, 2022 or later. Now, I was able to get my hands on the Senate version of this bill, which was quite pared down, and I zeroed in on the EV tax credit section of this bill, and I could not see anything that was changed in that particular section. So everything that we've been talking about with these EV tax credits is still the same today as it has been all this time. So really quick, here's your refresh of what's included in the EV tax credits. This is a 10-year bill. The first 5 years for all EVs. The next 5 years will be for US built EVs only. This bill is effective after December 31st, 2021. So starting January 1st, 2022, you then qualify. This is a $7,500 credit at $4,000 base for all EVs. There's a $3,500 boost if it has a 40 kilowatt hour or larger battery pack and less than 2.5 gallons all the way through 2026, and then starting in 2027 it has to have a 50 kilowatt hour battery pack and less than 2.5 gallon gas tank. There is that $5,000 boost, the $4,500 union boost, and a $500 boost if the battery is built in the US. This is a refundable credit. Your income does not matter. The only thing that matters is the car that you select and the maximum credits it qualifies for. Everybody gets the maximum amount in all terms except for income. The income caps are based on adjusted gross income, $250,000 for individuals, $500,000 for joint filers, and this is not an all or nothing credit. So you only lose $200 of the credit per $1,000 of income over those caps. The MSRP caps are still the same, sedans and others at $55,000, vans, SUVs, and trucks at $80,000. Used EVs do get a tax credit of $2,000 base as long as it's a 2-year-old car and no more than $25,000. An extra $2,000 available if it's got a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack or larger through 2026 and a 50 kilowatt hour or larger battery pack 2027 and on. The income caps for used EVs is $75,000 for individuals and $150,000 for joint filers. The timing on this credit is in the first year you will get this credit at time of filing your 2022 taxes. So in April of 2023, that's when you'll get your credit. Starting in 2023, you will get this at time of purchase. So it'll be treated like a rebate, like Like when you go into a traditional dealership today and Honda's offering a $1,500 rebate on a Honda Civic. It's at time of purchase, starting the second year and moving forward. Also, another thing that I get questioned about a lot is, am I able to get this credit more than once? And the answer is absolutely you can. Not only can you get this more than once, but you can get it more than once in the same year. If you are married or you have a partner, this is how you do it. This bill clearly states you are eligible 1 credit per taxpayer per year. So if you and your spouse both want to get an EV in the same year and you want to double your credits, one of you has to order and register one of the cars. The other person has to order and register the other car. So if you want to buy a Model Y and a Mach-E, one person buy the Mach-E and register it only in your name. One person buy the Model Y and register it only in their name. You will both qualify for the maximum credits for both of those cars. So for plug-in hybrids, something to think about. It's the same credits, the same structure, but the way that hybrids are built today, there's not many of them that have less than 2.5 gallon gas tank, and there's not many of them that have more than a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack. So most of them will not get the boost money, but they will qualify for that base $4,000 credit. And if the Union Boost stayed, there's a number of them that would still get the Union Boost. And if the battery came from the United States, they'd get that $500 boost. So there's up to $9,000 available. But most plug-in hybrid electric vehicles will qualify only for that base $4,000 credit. So if you're thinking about buying a plug-in hybrid, you might want to consider buying it now before the end of the year. The reason being, once these rules go into effect, the old way goes away. The current bill would allow you to get $7,500 on most plug-in hybrids today. That is, of course, except for car companies that have sold more than 200,000 units. But a Chrysler Pacifica is a perfect example because it's easy to think about. The Pacifica hybrid does qualify for $7,500 today. Now, that is based on your income though, so that is the difference between the new bill and the old bill. So you have to have at least $7,500 in tax liability to get that full $7,500. If you only have $2,000 in tax liability, you'll only get $2,000 in credits. But as we look into moving into this new bill, if it should pass, a lot of cars wouldn't get that full $7,500 anymore. There are a number of cars that qualify for $7,500 today that are going to qualify for substantially less money once this bill is passed, if it should pass. So it begs the question, I have an order ready for delivery, what should I do? Well, there's no guarantees that this is going to pass in the end. This is a ton of spending, and getting something like this passed is not easy work. So there's no guarantee it's going to pass. In addition, if it does pass, there's no guarantee that it's going to be retroactive to January 1st. So there's a lot of things on the line. If you want to take the chance, just make sure whatever you do, you don't take delivery until after the turn of the year. Even then, there's no guarantee, but you have a better shot. Right now, any car bought in 2021 or before that doesn't qualify for the existing rebates will not qualify under this new bill. So if your Tesla, as an example, is set to deliver right at the end of the year, you can't take delivery in 2021 if you want to try to get these tax credits. Your options are pretty straightforward. You either want to roll the dice, put your order on hold, and join the huge list of people who are also on hold and hope that this bill passes, and then take your order off of hold and wait however long it's going to be to get through all those people, and then take delivery and hopefully have these tax credits. Or you can take delivery now and move on with your life. So for those of you who have had an order in for quite some time, you've probably already got a much better price than what you would get this car for today, and it may be worth going ahead and taking delivery and just starting to enjoy the car. At the end of the day, the decision is up to you. There's no guarantees in life, and you're going to have to make that decision on your own. As always, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, of course, give it the thumbs up. If you haven't already, of course, subscribe to the channel as we continue to post content regularly. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Bearded Tesla. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.